Hello and welcome. This week we are talking about careers, particularly early stage careers. And I'm delighted to have with me Tim Mahoney, who manages apprentices for lots of different companies. Tim, welcome. Can you just explain a little bit about what you do?
Sure, of course. So I actually work for a company called Cogent Skills, and Cogent Skills really is a skills and talent partner, and we specialise in helping companies within the science and technology sector. Now, as part of that, we are also on something called, and it just rolls off the tongue, we are on the register of approved flexi job apprenticeship agencies. I did say it
Oof.
rolled off the tongue. I know. But essentially, what that means is that we are allowed by the government to employ, recruit, and arrange training for apprentices on behalf of other companies. And so this is our relationship with a number of different companies such as Pfizer and UCB and Jazz Pharmaceuticals. But what it means is that we act as the employer, and the apprentice would actually be solely employed at that host employer for the duration of their apprenticeship. So it just means that we're able to support companies who couldn't, for whatever reason, take on an apprentice.
Okay. So, what sort of apprenticeships are we talking about? What sort of scope of apprenticeships do you do?
A wide range of apprenticeships. As you can imagine, working for a science and technology sector, the vast majority are lab science and those apprenticeships based in the science sector. But there are also non-science apprenticeships as well, ranging from marketing manager, business admin, finance, solicitor. So a whole range of different job roles really that you'd find within a big pharmaceutical company.
That's lovely. Thank you. So, you find and recruit and then you place in companies. Is that how it works? Or do the
That's
companies come to you
exactly
and
how it
go, we want
works.
extra apprentices? Okay,
Yep,
that's lovely. So you're the one that is at the sharp end of meeting the candidates and selecting the candidates. So
very much so.
let's start with the very basics. How do you find the candidates? Where do you look?
Yeah, so what we do, we advertise in a number of different places. Because it's apprenticeship opportunities that we have, we must advertise all our vacancies with the government portal, the Find an Apprenticeship. But we do also use a number of different other websites. So we've got our own Cogent website. We also use external websites like Indeed and UCAS, as well as the host employers that we work with. So Pfizer, for instance, and Jazz Pharma.
So can we just, because you mentioned find an apprenticeship, can you just explain what that is? Because not everybody knows what that means. It's the UK government side.
It's a government site, yeah. So, and it is their main government portal. So anybody looking to find an apprenticeship, they'd have to create an account, and literally they would just Google find an apprenticeship, and it would take you to this government website portal. And then once you've created an account, you can search for an apprenticeship by apprenticeship standard or job role. You can also filter it by location, and it really is a great website in order to try and find apprenticeship opportunities.
And as you said, everybody has to put their apprenticeships up there.
It is a requirement, yeah, for all companies
So,
that are,
so it's pretty comprehensive. Okay.
yeah.
What do you look for? So, I mean, it's a question we get a lot when apprentices want to know where to start, where to go. So they sort of say, well, okay, they've gone on the website, they found perhaps something that looks absolutely wonderful. What do you then look for in the candidates? What would you advise them to do?
Very much so. So when we're looking for apprentices to fulfill our positions, obviously we have a number of different stages in the recruitment process. So first and foremost, the first stage in any recruitment really is the application. So, what we're looking for is what makes a good application form in the first instance. So, has the candidate done their research? You know, what have they done to try and find a little bit more about that company where that apprenticeship opportunity is being hosted at? Um, the other thing we're always looking for is, has the candidate actually reflected upon the skills that they've got? It's really important you try and make the skills that you have as a candidate as simple as possible for us as the employer to understand. Now, obviously, we realise that any apprenticeship opportunity, you're not going to have much skills and experience. We get that. It's obvious. So what we're looking for is other things? How can you demonstrate who you are as a person? How can you kind of, you know, blow your own trumpet, so to speak? So what have you done also outside of school? We know you're just going to have most of the time qualifications, and obviously the qualifications are really, really fundamentally important, but it's also what makes you who you are. So that could be, have you got a part-time job? Have you got a hobby? Do you play a musical instrument? Have you done any volunteering activities? And hopefully, by looking at some of these additional activities that you've done, you can then hopefully demonstrate some of the skills and the attributes that the employer is looking for in the person spec.
Okay, so one of the questions I hear from our own learners is they say, well, I've done a part-time job, I've done a bit of bar work, is quite often what they've done. Lots of us have done bar work through university or college. And they say, do I say I've done bar work, therefore that means I can integrate with the public and I can do, and I've dealt with difficult customers? Or do you just say I've done bar work, which meant that I was front, because that bar work can be that you were just doing something in the background, or it can be you were dealing with customers, different set of skills. Which do
Mm.
you like to see?
We like to see the applied knowledge that you've achieved from doing that activity. So yes, if you have done bar work, that's great, and obviously it will look good on your employment history. But it's, what did you get out of that bar work? What did you actually develop? So did you actually get the opportunity to develop good communication skills? Did you get the opportunity to follow basic instructions? You've got to make it as simple as possible for the employer to understand what it is you actually did.
Okay, so I say I worked in a bar for this period of time and I interacted with customers. Sometimes I had to work quite late and customers could be, I don't know, get difficult, or I had to deal with complaints. Is that the sort of thing you're expecting me to say?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And what you'll also find, certainly if you are trying to sell your skills when you reach the interview stage, is try and use the STAR method. You know, try and contextualize what the example is that you're trying to that you're trying to identify. So if it is communication skills, demonstrate how you use those communication skills. What was the situation? What did you have to do? And if you're working within a team, individualize it. We're not interested in what Johnny did or Susie did. It's what you did that counts. That's what's going to get you that opportunity.
And you mentioned, because that's the other thing is we see is hobbies. So people say, well, I like to do photography, that's quite popular, or music, which was the one you gave. What sort of skills could I be showing in that? So let's take music. So what sort of skills could I be demonstrated because I'm singing in a choir, for example?
Singing in a choir, so again, that could be good teamwork skills. It could also show attention to detail because you're trying to refine, you're trying to rehearse. Um, there's a whole myriad of skills you could develop. The one thing I would say also is read the job advert first. What type of skills is the employer looking for you to have? And then link your experience as to how you feel that matches it. As I said, there's no point saying you've got great attention to detail. Actually, if the job role isn't asking for that, because you're then not answering the question, it's really important you read that job advert and do your planning beforehand.
Yes, that makes sense. Though I have to say, I don't think I've ever seen a job advert that doesn't ask for you to be part of a team or be a good communicator. That seems to be quite a sort of standard thing to want.
Absolutely.
So when you're interviewing or when you're looking at paperwork, what else makes a candidate stand out? What else can I do that makes me rise up that pile?
One of the first things we always say whenever we're interviewing an apprentice or for an apprentice position is enthusiasm in the role, genuine enthusiasm about doing an apprenticeship. Um, and that's something you can't fake. It's something clearly it has to come from the candidate themselves. Um, Again, we understand you're going to be nervous. It's a job interview. But honestly, don't forget to smile, don't forget to enjoy it, but also don't forget to ask questions as well. Remember, it's a two-way process. We're not just trying to find the best candidate. Hopefully, you're also making sure that we fit your expectations as well, and that actually you would select us if you were successful in that position.
So can I go back to a couple of things you said? One was to use the STAR um, system to. So what is that? How can people use that?
Yeah, so the STAR method is an acronym, and it stands for situation, task, action, and results. And really, the STAR method is a structured manner of responding to behavior-based interview questions. And so, what you're going to be discussing is the specific situation, um, the task, the action, and the result of the situation that you are describing. And if you can do your prep beforehand and to think about what types of questions are they likely to ask? Let's say it's for a marketing position. So communication skills are paramount. So have a think about, could you give an example of when you created or demonstrated good communication skills? And use that STAR method as a way of really honing in and making sure you have a well-polished answer.
That's really good advice. Now, the other thing you said was doing your research on the company. So, how much research do you expect people to do? Can I just go in and have a look on the website for 20 minutes, or do I need to do something more than that?
Yeah, really good question. So of course, look at the website, but also have a think about the position you're applying for. So anyone can just have a quick look on their phone and look at the company website and go, "Oh gosh, yes, I see this company is global. Oh right, that's really interesting." But if it's a role that you're applying for, try and link your research to the role that you're applying for. So obviously, if it's a science-based apprenticeship, have a think about or research what kind of drugs or vaccines has that company marketed. If it's a finance position you're applying for, what's their share price? There's many different ways that you can do your research to try and make it focused for the position that you're applying for.
There's sort of two levels. So, one is getting my application in, and one is preparing for an interview.
Yeah.
Is it the same preparation for both, or is there something else I should be doing when I'm getting perhaps to an interview stage or a second interview stage?
Yeah, I mean, there are different things that you would do depending on the event that's coming up. I mean, obviously, if it's your first interview, certainly the day beforehand, there are basics that we all have to do. And by basics or simple stuff, it is things like planning the route. If it's a face-to-face interview, make sure you plan your route. How are you going to get to the interview? Do you know what time you need to arrive by? Do you know when you arrive at the company who you're going to ask for? I mean, they're very much the simple things, but do you know what? It's so important. So many candidates get the basics wrong. They may turn up late, or they may go to the wrong destination. I mean, I've had it so many times, and then you get a call an hour later, thinking, "Gosh, what's going on here?" Oh, it's the candidate. They got lost, or their train was delayed. If you are going to be delayed, make sure you can contact the hiring manager to inform them that you're going to be late. Again, basic manners, it goes a long way. You have to inform people. Um, the other thing I would also suggest you do before any interview is prepare some questions. Find out information that perhaps you'd like that, because as I said, I go back to this thing. It is a two-way process. Yes, we're finding out about you, but you also need to find out about us. Apprenticeships can be long in duration. Certainly, a lab science apprenticeship can last anything between 4 to 5 years. So that's a significant investment of your time and effort. So you want to make sure that also you're happy with that position. So have a think about questions, and not simple questions like what are the hours, what are the wages. All that's contained in the job advert anyway. But really, some pertinent questions. You might want to have further questions about development opportunities or additional responsibilities. But again, it's got to suit you. It's got to be what you're interested in.
Yes, it comes back to that enthusiasm, doesn't it? It's showing that you're actually interested in why you've applied. I see a lot of people over the years where they don't seem to know why they're there. They're sort of there because somebody else told them that they needed to apply for it, and now are not quite certain what they're supposed to say.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And we get it. As I say, we understand. Apprentice interviews are really tough, but just think of the person asking the questions as well, because they're not like normal interviews, because most normal interviews are based upon what experience have you got and how you're going to be well suited for the job. We understand, as I said before, you're not going to have much experience. So you've got to make it easy for us, yeah, to enable you to sell yourself. So that's why I go back to what makes you the best candidate. Do you know what skills the employer is looking for, and what skills do you possess that you feel will be relevant, yeah, in the apprenticeship position? Now it sounds quite daunting, but honestly, if you do your planning in advance, it is a lot more. It is a lot straightforward. It really is.
I think passion and enthusiasm can get you a very long way in interviews. You've mentioned a couple of times people being nervous, and I think we all worry about going into an interview and just either clamming up, or if you're my position, just keep talking. So, how do you advise people to manage their nerves? What should one do?
Yeah, I mean, and again, that's twofold. So again, I would always recommend preparing. So if you've got a friend or a parent that are able to ask and go through almost like a mock interview, that will reassure you. So again, a lot of the time, sometimes the nerves can be exacerbated by just not being prepared for questions. When somebody asks, what are your strengths? Demonstrate your strengths, but obviously, make sure it's relevant to the job role. If you think one of your strengths is, watching TV, that's not really what the employer is looking for, is it? Um, so if you practiced and rehearsed, you shouldn't be as nervous. But I get it. It's still a nerve-wracking situation. So breathing is integral. It really is. Take a couple of breaths. Don't be don't feel you have to answer the question straight away. Take a couple of seconds to reflect. Look around the room. Try and make eye contact as well. As I say, most of the time we're not out to scare you. We're not out, yeah, to make this one of the most awful experiences of your life. We want you to shine. We want you to perform, because guess what? We want to get the best out of you, because as an employer, we want to make sure we're hiring the best person possible. So it's in our interest to try and relax you as well. But obviously, with a lot of preparation beforehand, you should be able to feel a little bit prepared. So as I say, just take your time and try not to rush and hurry.
So there's a lot of misinformation. And as soon as you start Googling, what do I do in an interview? You'll be told you've got 6 seconds to make a good impression. And after that, you've blown it. Uh, from your side of the table, is that actually true? What do you say to people?
Literally, I say, in terms of, there are basics that are clearly so important. Clearly, if you arrive late for an interview, that is not going to look good. Clearly, if you haven't dressed for the occasion, that's not going to look good. It is all about making an effort. It is all about making sure that you are being perceived by the employer that you really want this position. So again, it goes back to, have you researched the company? Do you know what the job role it is you're applying for? Have you done some mock interview practice so you're able to see yourself better? And a lot of this will go a long way, wrapped up with bounds of enthusiasm and genuine, questions about the position, about the company. Um, and it will hold you in good stead. It really will.
And just before we finished, what sort of things do apprenticeships lead on to? Obviously, with this podcast, we're particularly interested in marketing apprenticeships. So,
Mm.
does it lead on to other things?
Very much so. So depending on the apprenticeship that you've completed, it could lead on to a graduate opportunity within marketing. You could be working for a marketing agency. Um, as I say, depending on what the apprenticeship is, it will lead to bigger and better steps. If you think, in essence, apprenticeships are about training and learning at the same time. So, you're getting the best of both worlds. You're receiving a qualification, whether that could be a degree, that could also be a professional qualification. But in addition, you're also getting that industrial work experience, and that could be for 2, 3, 4 years, wrapped up with KSBs, knowledge, skills, and behaviours. At the end of that apprenticeship, you are going to be a valuable person in the labour market, and you're probably going to be highly sought after.
Tim, that was absolutely great. It was full of really good tips and great advice. Just before we finish, is there anything else that you would say to a candidate, somebody sitting there thinking, well, I'm not quite certain that I've got the courage, or I'm not quite certain where to start? What would you say?
I would always say, first and foremost, yeah, please remember to be yourself. And I can't stress that highly enough as well. Don't try and be somebody that you're not. Really look within, find out who you are and what you feel comfortable doing. Yeah. And as I said, try and enjoy it. I know it's a stressful situation, but remember to smile. Remember to think, wow, haven't I done well? I'm actually in an interview for this company. And if you don't get it, don't beat yourself up. But also, don't feel bad also at the end of the interview. And you might think to yourself, there's no way I want to work here. Gosh, I've seen the way that they do stuff. As I said, the recruitment process is a two-way thing. So just enjoy it. But fundamentally as well, practice, because it will hold you in good stead in the long run.
Tim Mahoney, thank you so much for your time and all that expertise. Lots of hints and lots of tips there. And practice, I think, is always the key in anything that we do. But thank you
Yeah,
so much for your time.
super. Thank you.